And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Thomas Jane, a celebrated actor known for standout roles like The Punisher, The Expanse, and many more. He is now set to play the iconic Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy in Star Trek's new series, Strange New Worlds. Thomas is also a dedicated UFO researcher authoring the upcoming book, A Human's Guide to Advanced Visiting Aliens.
A Human's Guide to Visiting Aliens. Somebody slipped an advanced in there at some point, but it's probably me.
Well, what's the timeline for that book to come out?
Well, I'm editing it right now.
Oh, good.
And that is a process. I have a very good editor out of the East Coast. And I actually just saw him. I saw my parents. We ate some crab soup and made oysters and made beer butter clams. And then I got to have lunch with my East Coast editor. So he's kicking my butt and it's frustrating, but it's making the book better. It's making it better. That's what I want. I only want to do this once. If I'd have known what I was getting into, I don't know if I would have started the thing, but the last mile is the hardest mile, and we are getting it done.
Something happened to you around 2011, and I think that's what started your journey into UFOs over the last 15 years.
Like, I would say possibly millions, at least thousands, hundreds of thousands of people have had, these experiences with things that stretch the boundaries of what we believe reality should be, according to our dominant paradigms. So that happened to me. I don't know. I don't think I've come to believe that it's probably random, but I don't know that. But of course, the first thing, one of the first things that we ask is, why me?
Yeah.
But I wanted to make it mean something. I wanted to make it mean something for myself. I had a head full of questions, doubts, and fears, and I needed answers. I needed answers so that I could continue to live my life. It was really hard for a while. This has been reported in places like Free, the experiencer sort of interviews that they did with 3,500 experiencers, and they'd ask them sort of all kinds of questions. 3,500 of them actually took the survey and answered these long series of questions, and kind of boils down to 85% ultimately feel that they had a positive experience, 15% not so much. But one of the things that they commonly report is sort of losing an interest in the desire to be more well-known, the desire for material goods. They get more interested in spiritual concerns, in helping the planet, in helping people. And that certainly fits the bill in my case, and that's where the book that I've been working on for a long time now, that was the genesis. I guess we're headed for a transformation. We're in the middle of it now.
That's what people say.
I think Avi Loeb has called it a Neo-Copernican revolution, and I'm down with that. That's exactly what it is. The first one took 144 years, from the time Copernicus's book to the time where we, really recognized the immensity of the implications for the society at that time, which was that our sun was a star. That was not known, okay? The world the universe revolved around the earth, and somebody put it together and he said, you see all them little lights up there? And you see that big yellow ball? That yellow ball is one of those. And it just changed everything. It changed our entire conception about what the universe is and our place in it. And that's happening now. That's happening now in a completely different way. In my opinion, I think that we are transitioning from a physicalist model to a non-local model. That a non-local, immaterial, timeless, spaceless essence undergirds all of reality and gives rise to the universe that we see, touch, taste, and feel.
Many of my guests talk about that we're going from a 3D world to a 5D world.
Right. I don't
Which-
know what 5D means. I don't even know what a dimension is, but I understand the concept.
Well, to me, that means if we're going to a 5D world, we won't have bodies anymore. And that kind of sounds like what you're saying.
I think that we don't have bodies now. You know, we're in one sense, and in the other sense, you know, we are embodied instantiations of a non-local consciousness. And I think that the near-death people who you've talked to a lot, and other experiencers of paranormal, what we call paranormal, supernormal, might be a better word for it. That's where that's the revelation. That's sort of the revelation that these people have had, you know, that our dominant control systems, that means education, media, money, government, all the things that the web that we're kind of, you know, born into, and that pushes us around, you know, even language is a control system. It's a system of symbols that we need to communicate, and there's no other way to do it. It has to, you're either pushing vibrations through the air, you're writing symbols down, you are communicating using symbols in the real world. You're turning thoughts into symbolic representations, passing those to others who then have to interpret those symbols and then sort of unpack them into your mind. That whole system is a thought control system. And one of the things that fascinates me is that visiting aliens seems to have bypassed that control system, that symbolic system. And they're able to access reality in itself, the Kantian thing in itself, and use that directly in their technologies. So they've bypassed the physical, material, symbolic version of the world that we use to exchange ideas, emotions, thoughts, architectures of human endeavor, right? They're all based around language and symbols. And I think that an alien architecture is non-local, and that's a huge shift for society.
Since you think that our consciousness is non-local, do you think our bodies are a manifestation of our consciousness?
Well, our bodies are obviously, you know, made up of elements and chemicals. You know, we're a bag of chemicals and atoms and stuff. You boil all that down, and you get into these sort of quantum connections that really appear to be vibrations of energy, right? So that would be all of the physical things, you know, that make up the human world are in essence vibrations of a non-local proto-consciousness. Call it a proto-consciousness. You know, it's not the consciousness that you and I know and love. It's the human consciousness, in my opinion, is just an instantiation of what you could call a kind of primary or proto consciousness, which has, little to do with the thinking, the contents of human consciousness, that we know.
What's your take on the simulation theory? Do you think that we live in the Matrix here?
I think, in my opinion, the simulation theory is trying to describe what we're talking about, that physical reality, the world, the universe, the suns, the planets, the stuff of the universe, which makes up only 4% of the known universe. All that is kind of the foam on the head of a beer, right? And the beer itself is this non-local architecture, this non-local essence. And we interpret this kind of foam as a simulation, that it's sort of been created, but we kind of can't get away from using the analogies that we're familiar with, which would be kind of a computer simulation, right? But it's really likely that, ones and zeros have nothing to do with it. And when we talk about alien AI, which obviously, in my opinion, visiting aliens use some form of artificial intelligence. They have access to a form of actable, intelligent architectures that are probably not based on language, right? We use large language models, and somehow we're able to use that and create these machines that fool us into thinking that they're, thinking, which is incredible. And the access that we've been able to create, using electrons, silicon, ones and zeros, it's amazing what we've accomplished using, physical things like electrons, if you can call an electron, physical, but you know what I mean. But I think that underneath that, there is a non-local realm of access, of intelligence, of consciousness, and that is the architecture that an alien AI would be based on. And you probably could create something like a simulation using that. I think that the universe as such is so complex and so interesting that, why create millions or billions of other simulations just to see what would happen? That's one interpretation of a simulation, but in terms of a non-local consciousness creates the physical world, then that would make the physical world a type of not a simulation, but an instantiation, an architecture that's driven by underlying principles, right? That's kind of similar to what a simulation would be. And yeah, we can break out of this architecture. There's cheat codes. We can bypass the laws of the physical universe. And I think that that's how advanced intelligences are zipping around in this, immensely huge physical universe. In 2023, the Cosmos Webb, the James Webb program that was launched in 2022. In 2023, they repeated the experiment that Hubble had done in 2004, I think it was. where the Hubble Deep Field, where they had taken a grain of rice patch of sky. You hold a grain of rice at arm's length, take that little patch of sky and photograph it for about 10 days and do it in UV, in radio, in visible light, in infrared. And they found 3,000 unique galaxies within that grain of rice. And they extrapolated that to say there are about 200 billion galaxies. That's an insanely large number. We have no hope of wrapping our minds around what 200 billion of anything is. But that experiment was repeated in 2023 using better equipment. James Webb found 800,000 galaxies within that grain of rice sized patch of sky, which tells us now that there are trillions, maybe 2, maybe 10, trillions of galaxies in just the visible bubble, right? That we're kind of we're limited to exploring. We're limited to exploring the light sphere. And there's a couple of trillion galaxies. That's insane. A trillion seconds is 31,500 something years. That's a trillion seconds. A trillion seconds is double the time that our civilization has been around. If you go with a conventional, view on that. So a couple of trillion or 10 trillion is ridiculous. So the question becomes, how could anybody find each other in a universe that big? How the hell could any visiting alien zip around on this little blue dot in the middle of absolutely, it's like we can't even conceive of how that could be done. And I think that the answer lies in a non-local conscious connection, that life, that's what we call life. We have no idea what life is. We don't know how it started. We have no concept of how you get such exquisite organization out of a warm pond of muck, right? And I think that they're probably one and the same.
I guess every explosion out there results in disorganization, except the Big Bang is the only one that created everything, which doesn't make sense.
I think we're misinterpreting the Big Bang, right? So we are linear people. We born, we grow up, we do, we die. It's a linear progression, and everything in our life and the world, we can all create a linear picture out of everything. So it makes sense. We'd look at the universe and try to apply that thinking onto the origin of the universe. So things sort of, started in this primeval atom, and they exploded, and beyond the speed, as somebody said, it was the one free miracle that gives rise to the rest of science. But I think it may have been. I imagine something like an Escher, the drawing of the hand drawing itself. I imagine something like that happening, not in one location that branched out, but everywhere all at once. So it was a sort of a non-local. I guess I love that word. Big Bang that happened everywhere all at once.
Kind of sounds like fractals.
Yeah,
all at once.
Absolutely. Fractals is a great way to say it.
Well, you've been on the Enterprise, so you know what warp drive is. Do you think that ships are really traveling somehow faster than the speed of light, or do they enter the realm of consciousness and kind of fold space together?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that would be wonderful to sort of start thinking about how what are the processes that you would need to make something like that and then make it happen. The Albuquerque drive is a great idea, but I think it may be cheaper than that. We say that to fold space-time, you need like the energy of a star to make that happen. That's conventional. That's applying conventional physics to an unconventional problem. And the thing I like about light is that it's timeless. Light itself is timeless, and our measurement of light happens at the speed of light, 186,000 miles an hour. A photon leaves the sun. It takes 8 minutes to get here. But Peter Russell is a science philosopher, and he said that the best way to look at light is not from our point of view, but from light's point of view. And from light's point of view, the time between the emission of a photon and its absorption is zero. There is no time. Time stops at the speed of light. So that means that there's a domain, there's a time-free, space-free domain that light lives in. And this has been hypothesized to be sort of the origin of information, that information is timeless and spaceless. And as it enters the physical world, that's when it develops, it takes on the quality of mass, which then anchors it into space-time, which then gives it a hard upper limit in how fast that information can be processed. And that's the speed of light. The speed of light is this information processing speed of the universe. It's pretty darn fast.
If we were standing on the beach looking at the ocean, we would just see water. And if someone who's never been in the water may not realize that there's a whole world underneath.
Right.
Is it possible that when we look at light, there's a world happening within inside the light as well, that we can't see it from the outside?
Absolutely. It's the timeless, spaceless zone. You can call it the light zone. And the trick is transferring the information of us or a craft into that light zone, and then resolving it at a location. And I think coordinate remote viewing might be a real clue to that.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell does giving someone a set of coordinates anchor that person's consciousness to a specific location in space and time, where they would then be able to extract information about that location, that physical location in time and space, right? You got Pat Price and all these wonderful, really talented remote viewers, Ingo Swann. And, Ingo was able to remote view the moon. Who remote viewed Mars? His name escapes me at the minute, but he went to, a million BC. And, the problem with, he said, with those kinds of exercises is you can't verify them, and remote viewing is faulty, and the success rate is sort of a wave space, right? So it's sort of a fuzzy sort of your ability to verify remote viewing is fuzzy, and sometimes they're off, and sometimes and how they're off is dependent on a whole lot of factors. But the fact is that it works, and it was Ingo that created this coordinate remote viewing, and somehow the information of coordinates translates or anchors the information space so that consciousness is able to access a specific time and place. And that might be a clue as to how you would be able to sort of take that information from the physical world, transfer it into the non-local, and then resolve it back into the physical world at a different location.
Have you ever taken a remote viewing class?
No, but I had a funny experience where when I was first getting into remote viewing and just doing the research, I was on my iPad and someone was doing a remote, they were explaining remote viewing, and then they would show the picture and then they would show the drawing and how they related and how they didn't, right? And they would go. So I just thought, okay, the next time there's a I forgot how I did it, but I remote viewed what the picture was going to be. I paused the video and I went through the exercise and I tried to do it. And what I drew was what I thought was kind of a fence posts, right? So I saw a post, and then another one, and then another one, and it turned out to be Stonehenge, which you know has a it could have been an airplane, or a cow, but it was very similar, and I was like, that's kind of neat. You could call that the luck of the beginner, I guess, the art of the beginner.
What do you think about Trump's big announcement? How he's directed the government agencies to release all the UFO files?
Well, I'm always looking for the motive behind the motive. I think that it's positive that it gives a lot of people permission to come forward in a way that they maybe hadn't before that. Um, but I also feel like he's using the threat of shaking up that hornet's nest to get other parts of the government to back off, where they were coming after him in other ways. I think he's using that and shaking that stick as a warning. I say I can make your life really, really hard. Um, and I think that's probably I would put that over the president's desire to get to the bottom of the UFO thing. I don't think that governments have any interest in doing that. It's got to come from us. We have to apply relentless and steady pressure to the system to get it to crack. And we're not as close as we think we are. I also wonder if there's not some sort of time limit placed on the act of disclosure by the uh, groups, alien groups or races that are interacting with our planet. They may have put kind of an ultimatum on it, where it's like, this needs to happen by a certain sort of period, and it might not be a time period, but it might be more of a technological shift, and the governments might know that, but they might be, dragging it out as long as they possibly can, because what's the benefit? There's really no benefit in copping to the fact that that we have alien visitors, the fact that they can get here. Scientists truly understand how bizarre that sounds. We colloquially we're like, yeah, it's really far away, but they did it. But it opens up a bag of worms that nobody wants to deal with in government and the other pillars of science and academia. I think that a lot of I think we're starting to understand that academia and science really has suppressed a lot of our development, that there are forbidden zones that are, and how easy that is to do. If you're interested in some crazy non-local interaction, but the observer effect, getting that stuff published is really hard. And even on a place like Arvix, you can get it published, but they won't put it where it should be. They won't put it with physics. They'll put it somewhere else. Brian Josephson has ran into this. He's a Nobel Prize winning physicist, the Josephson effect, brilliant guy. He got into consciousness and physics and all that stuff, and he writes these brilliant papers. But they won't publish his papers in the quantum physics section of Arvix. They'll put it off in some other, section that nobody reads. So that's one way that they can sort of control the narrative. The scientific journals is another way. You're not going to get published if you write about the phantom DNA effect with water. There's just some stuff that you just won't be able to make a living doing. So that's a really easy way to guide and navigate the scientific consensus. So that would be challenged, seriously challenged, with the admission that we have visitors. It just opens up a whole can of worms. So it's going to be a process.
I had Danny Sheehan on, and you probably,
I love Danny. Yeah, I did a panel with him, Contact in the Desert.
Right.
I mean, he's brilliant.
Right. I figured you'd know him from Contact in the Desert. I only had a small limited amount of time with him, and I didn't get a chance to follow up on many questions. But I was surprised that he said that there are 5 different species visiting this planet.
He said 5, huh?
Yeah.
Where did he say who they were?
No, like I said, I didn't get a chance to follow up on that. Maybe the next time I have him back. But
well, Robert Dean, 1964, he claims to have read a document in NATO's European office called the Assessment, where the military had concluded that there were 4 different groups that they had categorized. And then Eric Davis, of course, in the congressional briefing, talked about 4. You've got the praying mantis, the reptiles, the Nordics, and the gray. A lot of experiencers believe that this group is related to each other in terms of their function. They've been seen working together a lot. And I think that might be the core group that is assigned itself to planet Earth and is engaging with our society and slowly transforming it. I'd like to know what the 5th was.
Yeah, I do too.
We want to pin it down. We can't. I have trouble with folks who talk about the Arcturians and stuff. I just don't know. One of the reasons is because a lot of the alien contacts, they'll say, well, we'll come back on Tuesday, or, 3 months for the 3rd Sunday in your 3rd month, we're going to come back. They never do. They say, the planetary crust is shifting and civilization is going to collapse. Sometimes they give a time frame, sometimes they don't. They usually say soon. A lot of these accounts are from 50 and 60 years ago, and nothing's happened. They tend to lie. and it doesn't really mean very much to say, we come from in that direction, see that constellation there, the Lyra, that's us. So, we call them the Lyrans. It's tough. We have to call them something.
Yeah. Well, have you built a bunker complex yet? Because supposedly a lot of celebrities are building them. And if so, what are they worried about?
What are they worried about? I think there's a lot to be worried about. I think that we're headed for a major shift, you know. Things that I worry about are things like we're all going to start wearing our electronics and they're going to be embedded in our clothes and then they're going to be implanted. I worried about the um, amazing powers of control that our new digitally interconnected society gives a very small group of people. That worries me. And I think we might be in some kind of race, you know. I think that if we can um, recognize that consciousness is non-local, that we all have access to this just by dint of being alive. I think plants have access and utilize non-local effects. Then that can create a new ontology for the human race that can bypass some of this authoritarian digital AI overlord stuff that small group of people, seem dedicated to bringing about on our planet.
Have you ever seen the TV show Farscape?
Oh yeah.
What I love is they have that character that's a plant. You remember what you made me think of that when you're talking about plants having consciousness.
They absolutely do. There's a great book called The Secret Life of Plants that was written in the 70s, and I highly recommend it to everybody. They get into Cleve Backster, who was a CIA. He taught CIA people how to operate lie detectors, and he hooked them up to his plants. He started getting all these incredible effects. Not when he, like he thought maybe I'll burn this plant and I'll see maybe I'll get a spike. The thought of burning the plant is what caused the spike. And that sent him on a lifelong quest to sort of figure out what this connection was. They're tapping into a non-local consciousness.
Wow. Well, what was
And
it like?
it's
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
time free, His experiment, which never got, he got a lot of great effects. There's a lot of great material. And he did a rigorous study, boiling shrimp brine, I think, and getting these effects. And his experiment was, let's put a plant on one of these rovers that go to Mars, because there's a 4-minute delay between us and Mars. So we can test if we can get whether or not the effect was time free, or whether it was driven by some electromagnetic wave. And that would have been a great experiment. It's still an experiment that should be done.
There's that old physics experiment where you did something and then a particle very far away instantaneously made the same change. Does that make any sense?
That's right. Yeah. That's John Bell. It's quantum entanglement that perturbing or observing or measuring one particle that's entangled with another will instantaneously affect the other particle, no matter the distance. That was just proven recently. I mean, we've kind of known about it, and people thought there would be hidden variables that would preserve Einsteinian sort of limitations. But in 2022, Alain Aspect, John Clauser, and Zellinger won the Nobel Prize in Physics for finally demonstrating that Bell's inequality is real and there are no hidden variables and the universe really is non-local. So that was like 3 years ago. So we're really just at the very beginning of recognizing the true non-locality of the universe
So,
just now.
so are you saying that when they ran the experiment on Mars, it was the same thing, that the plant would react instantly, even though there was
That's
that
right. It would be
distance?
an instantaneous react. You could hook a plant up to a lie detector test, or get a reaction out of a plant non-locally using consciousness, and it works best if you're entrained with the plant. So plant owners would be entrained if you're nice to the plant, you talk to the plant. It really works.
Wow.
If the other experiment they did was they took some group of plants, put them in a room, like cared for them for a while, and created a connection, And then they had a group of people who would one by one go into the room alone. And one of the people, unbeknownst to the rest of the group, would destroy one of the plants, right?
Okay.
So the people don't know who destroyed the plant, but the other plants know. And then they'd bring in every person one by one into that room with the other plants monitored, hooked up to their, their little machine. And when the murderer walked into the room, the other plants went crazy. So is that a non-local effect? And how you would, you'd run another experiment where you put that plant on Mars, and if you've entrained yourself to that plant, then you can have a non-local effect on that plant, which would register instantaneously on Mars if it was non-local.
Well, I keep looking at your SpaceX hat. Have you ever been down to Starbase, Texas?
Not Texas. I was at the place here in near Los Angeles.
Is that still open?
Right.
Is it still open?
Not sure. This was a couple of years ago, but they were building rockets for,
Wow,
about an hour from me. So I had to go down and check it out. It was awesome.
That is cool. I saw a video on YouTube the other day about Starbase, Texas, and it was pretty interesting. I guess his employees, they get to rent a Tesla Cybertruck. So there's Cybertrucks everywhere, and they're just building like crazy to create some kind of structure there. So engineers will actually want to move there.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. What do you think about the fact that every time we plan a new moon mission, it gets canceled?
Yeah, that is interesting.
Darn interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, they've had plans to go back to the moon for decades. And every time they get close, something happens.
Well, hasn't Elon himself changed his focus and now wants to build the base on the moon first?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it should be. We should start with the moon, build a base there. I think that there's been some guidelines put in place about how we can utilize the moon. That's what I think. I think that, the original plan for America was to create a moon base and have the high ground. We could dominate the entire world with a military base on the moon. That's where we got all the money to create this moon project. And that was ultimately what the race with Russia was about. Whoever got there first, plant their flag, and then they build their damn military base on the moon. That was one idea. International collaboration would have been nice, which they actually tried to do, and that got shut down. But I think there's a lot more going on. Clementine, that was a mapping satellite, mapped the entire moon in high res, but you can't access those high res photographs online. There's like a handful of high res Clementine photographs. And then there's low res photographs that you can access. Some of them have fuzzed out spots on them. But the fact that we've got, this was back in the 90s, I think, that we've mapped the moon a long time ago and can't look at it, can't see any of it. It should be public. We paid for it. The public of America paid for the darn mission. We should be able to see what pictures they took.
Do you follow Elon's robots? What does he call them? Optimus or something like that?
Yeah.
Like maybe at the end of next year, he's going to release them at maybe 20 grand a pop or something.
The robots are coming. The Chinese are making a hell of a lot of robots. That's going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems to me that we're in this kind of race, this technological race for what is ultimately control, right? And if AI puts a lot of more people out of work and people are clamoring, to make a living, then they'll be willing to accept just about any new social system that comes along that ensures that they can eat and have a place to live. That's a dangerous tool of control, and it's been used to great effect in the past, where you make the civilization suffer, they beg for mercy, and then somebody swoops in and says, well, we're going to fix it all. Everybody's be bright, smiley, happy, bellies full, children happy, and everybody goes for it, and then it turns out to be another authoritarian, state. So that's dangerous. And the race would be with this sort of Neo-Copernican revolution, this awakening, which will change a lot more than even we can imagine.
I feel like in the future, if AI gets AGI or ASI, I'm not sure what the name of it is, but the robots will get so good that people will end up just having relationships with robots instead of each other.
They're already having them. The chatbots have millions of subscribers. The chat boyfriend girlfriend thing, millions.
I didn't realize that.
Oh yeah, and the kids can't wait to get home and tell their AI chatbot what they did today. They do that before they tell their parents.
Wow.
You don't recognize what an incredible tool of control that is. When you have a robot that is ultimately controlled by a small group of people, gaining the trust, the emotional trust of human beings. The scariest thing I saw was an app that you can film your grandmother or anybody that you're going to lose. And you film them for 3 minutes talking, answering a series of questions, and then that will create an AI that it looks and acts just like your loved one. And then then you're asking grandma for advice, and grandma is going to give you the advice that grandma is told to give you. That's terrifying. That's an emotional trap that scares the hell out of me.
Did you hear of Malt Book?
No,
I think somebody created a social website like Facebook, but for AI agents. And I think it was actually coded in Claude AI.
Whoa.
And
What does it do?
I don't really understand the concept that well of an AI agent, but you can create an AI agent to do things for you online.
Right.
So this is like a social website for these AI agents to hang out.
Oh, they're all just chatting with each other?
Yeah.
It's terrifying how just the AI doesn't scare me. It's what we do with it that's so terrifying. That's what's terrifying. We're not spiritually or emotionally equipped to handle the tools that are coming online. And I'm starting to believe that the reason why we are accelerating our awakening to the greater cosmic ecology is because of that. Because the tools can be dangerous to the planet, to each other, and ultimately to our visitors. And they have to be carefully managed and controlled. And it's not just anti-gravity and zero-point energy, which are problems in themselves. I think the deeper problem are these artificially intelligent tools that are coming online and where they're going, and that we don't really understand the acceleration of the graph, how fast that they're going to advance. It gets exponential. So I think Kurzweil has talked about this.
Most people use the free versions of these AIs, right? Like what ChatGPT and Grok and Google Gemini. But if you get on the pro level where you have to pay, they're way better.
Yeah.
I had a guest on that he was telling me he used to build websites and it would take him 2 months to build a website. And he said Claude AI, the paid version, can build that same website now in 2 hours.
Wow.
Code the whole thing and be done.
Wow. And you're just telling it what to do.
I guess so.
You're talking to it. You're like, this is what I want,
Mhm.
It's amazing. It truly is. I mean, it hasn't hit us yet how powerful these tools are, and we're in the later generations. The younger generations are born into this thing. They're living there. And with those kids, the teenagers who are experiencing and working with this AI, to do their homework right now, what those kids are going to create in 10 years that is when the world is going to shift. So the timeline, we're on a short timeline here. So I do think that we're going to have some form of disclosure within the next decade. Of course, people have been saying that for quite a while. And a lot of it depends on us. We really do have to push this thing forward. And that's why, I'm talking about this crazy stuff and willing to take some of the backlash for it. And because I'm looking at the future, I'm not looking at today. I'm looking at my daughter's life in 10 years. And I want to do what I can do to ensure that we've got a shot at still being free and happy.
What I'm surprised about is it appears to me from the people that I talk to that even people in the spiritual community now are heading in the direction of transhumanism, and even not only accepting it, but also maybe even saying that that's what we need to do, or we should
Right.
do. That
The old transhumanists, they've got a great history.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it's not the tools, it's who's using them. I would love to have an AI built into my brain and connect to the, non-local information highway. I mean, that sounds great. But getting there is a really delicate and dangerous process. And we need to be extremely careful. And we don't have the tools to handle the tools right now. We don't have the ethics in place. We don't have the ethical architecture in place. We don't have a purpose. Human society itself has yet to define a purpose. Right now, our highest value is money, and that's not going to hold with the tools that we've got coming online. That ideology, that false ideology, is going to destroy us. So we've got to reevaluate the ethical understructure of society. And we have to do it together. We have to start having the conversations. And a lot of really smart people, there's a great book by Robert Lanza called Biocentrism, which essentially hypothesizes that the universe is conscious and that it exists for the creation of life. And if we can orient ourselves to that truth, then that guiding star will begin to reorient our values and how we operate. And I think we're going to have to do that. Or we're going to implode and give this planet back, to the people that are, living under the stairs.
Well, some of my guests talk about that the grays are us in the future and have come back to warn us, to try to keep us becoming that.
Yep. I don't have a lot of faith in warnings. They haven't done much good.
Yeah.
But there's a guy named Aaron Schultz, who's a comic book artist, and he not too long ago claimed that he was abducted in the 90s a few times by gray. They had gray greenish skin, he said, and they said that they were us from the future, that they had migrated to a totally different solar system, evolved on that planet, and now come back to study us, quote, before we started integrating technology into our bodies. I liked his, I think I think that they might have told him that. Again, like, how do we can't take what these aliens say at face value, but it's an interesting story.
I wonder if we implement enough tech into our bodies that our consciousness would get used to attaching itself to silicon. And at some point, consciousness could just attach itself to a robot.
I think the robot needs to change. I think that our definition of robot needs to change. It's much easier to use the architecture that already exists. And that seems to be what a lot of these gray aliens are. There's several different grays. The gray body type seems to exist on a plethora of different sort of groups and species, different color skin, taller or shorter. They're here for different reasons. But the abduction grays, they seem to be these biosynthetic organisms that are grown instead of built. And the architecture is genetic. And if you believe the microbiologist from Reddit, some of those genetics are actually Earth genetics, which makes perfect sense. Go to a planet, you take samples of their genetics, you build robots based on the genetics of the planet that you're engaging with, and therefore your robots can survive and be acclimated to your planet of choice. And you can take that architecture and use it to create a human being that looks perfectly human, and then use that as an avatar for your consciousness and put it into that avatar and then walk around our planet and nobody would ever know the difference. You go to J.C. Penney and buy a bunch of clothes and put them on, and you're an alien walking among us. I think that's absolutely part of the deal.
Do you think that really humans can't be spacefaring people because these bodies won't work in space for very long or on other planets? They're like, geared to be here.
Well, I think that there's a number of different planets that are rather Earth-like. So it just depends on the planet, If it's a planet that's sort of 20 times larger than planet Earth, then I think we'd have problems. But I think that there's a number of planets, and innumerable planets that are essentially Earth-like or super Earths. And I think that these visitors, when they land and they look around, they're seeing something that looks a lot like where they come from. Mm-hmm. Which the fascinating question for me is genetic evolution, and does it follow a similar morphogenetic path on other planets? Is there some non-local instantiation that impels life to arise on various planets, but using the same tools? Because as far as we know, we have a limited number of elements that have been created in the furnaces of exploded stars that are scattered throughout the entire universe. So the same basic building blocks are being used. And I think that all of these aliens may be based in the same genetic structure. We all might be sharing the same genetic toolkit.
It's just fascinating to think about how on some other planet, the praying mantis being became the dominant species.
Right? Like, what the heck is that about? Now, we have to say that when we describe an alien like a reptile or like a praying mantis, we're using, that's a method of description, not necessarily of, more biology. So although, it would be fascinating to learn that something like an insect can develop higher intelligence on another planet or a reptile, and maybe that's true. Or maybe we're just using, the best way we have to sort of describe something that we're familiar with. Use something familiar to describe something totally unfamiliar, like Gumby. What if there's a race of Gumbies out there?
What was your reaction when you got the call from, I'm assuming, your agent that the role's been offered to you to be on Star Trek?
Well, my mom told me that we used to watch Star Trek in the 70s every day, waiting for my dad to come home from work. I think it came on at like 5 o'clock on one of those 3 channels that we had on a television screen that's about the size of this computer. And And so my mom was a big fan, and her favorite character was Bones. So it was an honor, of course. It was like jumping onto a moving train, but the crew and the actors had all been there doing this for, I'm coming on to the end of Strange New Worlds. So everyone was, very accommodating and super nice, and everybody is happy to be there. There's a special feeling when you're, working on the Enterprise. I got to tell you, the first time I walked out onto the set of the bridge, I just say everybody went to lunch, and I just sat there on the set of the bridge, and sat in the chairs and walked around,
That's
and
cool.
it was special. It was special.
Did they give you any "damn it, Jim" lines?
Well, you're just gonna have to wait and find out.
From what I've read, the executive producers say that you were the perfect fit for the position.
That's
And
nice.
and I've seen you on The Expanse, and I thought you did an amazing job. And I actually could see that because the way that character kind of
Right.
is salty,
Right.
kind of a
Right.
salty dog kind of
Yeah.
character, and Bones is kind of the
Yeah.
same way.
I can see the connection, for sure. And the challenge was to not fall back into the Miller character that I played on The Expanse. I had to lean more into DeForest Kelly, which of course is an honor. And DeForest Kelly wore a pinky ring that was his mother's ring,
I
and
didn't
his
know that.
mother had died. So in every, he said, "I'm not taking the ring off." So he wears this ring, and as a homage to that, I also wore a ring on my finger, just to keep that alive. I thought that was cool.
Oh,
It was DeForest Kelly's love for his mother
that's cool. Yeah, it is.
became part of the character, and then passed down over the generations. I thought that was neat.
Obviously, I'm not an actor, so I don't know the trade, but how do you prep for that? Are you trying to put some of yourself in there, or do you
Yeah.
try to do some of
Yeah, I'm not
DeForest?
going to
Or...
do. Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to besmirch or besmudge the DeForest Kelly's Doc McCoy with my interpretation. It's going to be me, or my character, with the same sort of sensibilities, and so we share some things, but we're two different people, and I wouldn't want to. I don't think anybody would want to watch that. An imitation of a guy who is so iconic.
Yeah.
But the attitude, the way he thinks about life, the fact that he's a doctor and he's kind of smarter than everybody else, and he's working with these kids who are idiots most of the time. All that's the same. So the given circumstances are the same.
For those of you out there who haven't seen it, I think it's a great series, and I hope that it develops into a whole new Star Trek, because I think the cast is awesome. I mean, I love the Spock character, and
I really loved Spock. He was cool.
Yeah,
Great job with it. Very tough to step into these roles.
Yeah.
Not an easy task for an actor to step into iconic actor roles. It's also a challenge when you're playing a character from real life. Like I played Mickey Mantle. And that the burden of, I also played Neil Cassidy, who's hung out with Jack Kerouac back in the day. But when you're taking on real life characters, there's an extra burden in there. And I always felt it was best to, honor the memories of the people that loved that character, like Mickey's children, who are still alive when we shot that, probably still alive now, I hope. But making them happy, honoring their father was more important to me than pleasing anybody else.
That's great.
And that's an extra added burden with a character like that.
How I became familiar with you is because I had a guest on that claimed to be one of the people working in the secret space program, and I asked him about if there's a TV show that's anything like what he's seen out in space, and he said The Expanse. And that's how I discovered you in the show. And if you people out there haven't seen it, it's an amazing series. I really like it a lot. It's to me, it's very realistic about on how it would be to live out in space.
Yeah, that was the idea. We were very proud of that. A lot of great writing on that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, the writers, Mark and Hawk. We have recently got the rights to a Stephen King book called From a Buick 8, which is a book that King wrote in 2003, I think. Uh, and we're going to adapt that into a series. So those guys are wonderful writers. They get into the heart of the characters, and that's really what it's all about at the end of the day. It's taking human beings and putting them in space, and how that works out. And that was the successful aspect of that show, and I think why it has so many fans.
Well, it also has a spiritual component to it because
Yeah,
it has that being in the first season that you don't really understand as the viewer what's going on. And I think
right.
all the great sci-fi shows that have a spiritual component to them
Mm,
are amazing. I mean, even Star Wars has the Yoda, and the Force has that
sure.
spiritual component,
Yeah.
and among others.
Yeah, I really think they're tapping into a real feature, of the universe. I think the Force is this sort of non-local garment that we're sort of groping around the edges of now. And I think that it's as powerful or more powerful than they describe in the movies. So I think that I agree with you, and I think that we're tapping into that. It hits a chord inside of us that resonates as something true.
Yeah, exactly. Somewhere down deep,
Mhm.
it hits something. What do you think about the secret space program?
I have a lot of problems with the 20 and back stuff. Um, I think that there is a secret space program. I think Gary McKenna uncovered something real, and that there is a lot of disinformation that's pumped out into the community. And sometimes it's to obscure something, or make something sound so ridiculous that it can't possibly be true. I've learned that often hides something that is true, One example of that is that alien, forget what people call it, but the alien tape that came out in the 90s where they had that uh, shot that looked like it was shot off of a monitor, and there were little numbers underneath, and the alien was sick, and the doctors kept wiping its mouth. People who are familiar know what I'm talking about. They were able to debunk that and make that go away for years. And recently, this guy has done a lot of research on that, and it looks like that was real. And most all of the UFO community had dismissed it as a probable hoax. That is a real clue as to sort of how we can investigate this phenomenon. And we look at how the narrative was shifted to turn that into a ridiculous hoax. Um, that's a clue as to how these disinformation campaigns operate. If there is a real secret space program, it would make sense that it would be surrounded by ridiculous stories that most sober-minded people would dismiss. So that's a clue, that to me says that there's probably a there.
There was some statement by one of the people in the German army of World War II. I don't know who made the statement. Something about the bigger the lie and the more it's repeated, more people will believe it.
Yeah, yeah, it was one of the Nazis, Goebbels or somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That's right, and it's true. The more outrageous, the better. And we can. The real question is, what is the secret space program, and how does that overlap with visiting aliens? because you know that if we have a secret space program, then it must be attenuated by some of these intelligences. They're not just we're not just running around out there doing whatever the hell we want. I think that it's carefully managed by the cosmic community, and I think it would have to be. You know, we're too tribal, and we don't have much figured out. You know, we're still pretty primitive. So the secret space program may be something like training wheels for a new society that we're either going to be, you know, merging with, or we will be destroyed by.
Well, do you think disclosure is going to come anytime soon?
I'm pessimistic as to the timeline, but disclosure is happening. It's happening now. You know, we've got, although it still has yet to sort of break through into the mainstream, even though, you know, Trump is sending, you know, posts out into the world talking about it and all that stuff. I can't talk about this stuff, you know, at a lunch with the producers. People still look at me, you know, funny, and as they should, you know. So we still have a long way to go. And I think most people's attitude is, yeah, show me the spaceship and show me the bodies, and then we'll talk. And until then, you know, I've got shit to do, and that makes that makes a lot of sense, you know. But some of us who've been, you know, bashed in the brains by interdimensional mathematicians have to cope with this in some way, and start sort of reaching out and probing the possibilities, asking the questions, searching for answers, you know, mostly in the dark with a very feeble beam.
Do you ever talk to your coworkers and colleagues about this kind of stuff, or you keep it to
Not
yourself?
really.
No.
I learned a long time ago to keep it to myself. Actors are, you know, crazy to begin with, and we have that reputation, and it's well earned. So yeah, no, I keep that stuff to myself mostly, you know, unless it comes up and unless people are interested. And a lot of my friends and, you know, people that I know, of course, know that I'm writing this book and stuff like that. But yeah, it's finding ways in is part of our job right now. You know, finding ways to sort of raise awareness and make it acceptable, and make it sound not so crazy. I mean, the Air Force's ridicule campaign just worked so well that they had to change the name from UFO to UAP when they expected physicists, and they were inviting sort of scientists to take this more seriously, and they're having trouble. I mean, there's a core group, the Soul Foundation, that is doing great work, but it's still a challenge. You know, Avi Loeb, even, he takes a lot of shit wherever he goes, but he's doing good work. And you know, we're slowly kicking the door down. It's a slow motion. It's a slow motion drop kick.
Well, how has the transition been from being on camera to being a public speaker? Because you've been at Contact in the Desert and you're coming back again this year.
Right.
What is that transition like for you?
Oh, I hate it. I really do. I'm an introvert. I I'm more comfortable alone. I get, you know, some people get energy from being in crowds, and some people it drains them and they have to be alone to charge their battery, and that's me, which is tough. Being in the business that I'm in, you know, being an introvert in an extrovert's business is difficult. And talking on stage, I want to do it, and I really enjoy putting the talk together and creating the pictures to go with it, and trying to find ways to communicate what I want to say in a way that's interesting and makes sense. And I learn by putting the talks together, by organizing my thoughts, just like writing the book. I learn more, and new connections will start to come together. So it's so it's fruitful. But I'm not a great public speaker. I get nervous, and it's a little bit torturous for me. But people enjoy it. You know, they still enjoy it. They cut me some slack, and they enjoy the talks. So I'll keep doing them.
Cool. What are you going to be talking about this time?
Well, this time I'm going to have the book ready. So my talk is going to be called A Human's Guide to Visiting Aliens.
So you're going to have it published by May 28th?
I'm going to have a version. I hope that we can have a digital version out by then. We'll see. But if it doesn't come out then, it'll come out around then.
Cool.
And I'm working as fast as I can to get this thing off my desk, which is the goal right now. It's pretty much all I do. It's all I do right now.
Wow.
It's driving me nuts, to tell you the truth. And I think the last mile is the hardest mile. So that's a sign that I'm getting close, you know, when I just want to just throw it across the room is a sign that I'm close to the end.
How tempted are you to just upload the whole thing into Chat GPT and see what it says about your book?
I tried to do that with a talk that I gave, and I got lost in the miasma of trying to get this thing to do what I wanted, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I'm a better writer than the robot is right now. So the robot can give me ideas, and it can make connections every now and then, but I will not let the robot touch anything that I'm writing. You know, it'll just screw it up. So I don't let the robot touch anything.
In prepping for today's discussion, I saw that you used to produce a comic book. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
You still do that?
Yeah. I've got a comic out right now called The Lichen.
Oh, really?
It's on Comixology. It's the digital version is out. All 6 issues are out on Amazon right now. It's called The Lichen. And it made the best of the year of 2025.
Cool.
And I really enjoy putting together graphic novels and comic books and stuff. I've done it a few times. This latest one I'm really proud of. It's a gothic horror about, you know, werewolves and a gang of hunters who get shipwrecked on this island that has a wolf problem. And they all end up holed up in a castle, and there's nuns and I like the dynamic between this group of big game hunters that are on their way back from Africa with a ship full of pelts and tigers and stuff. And they get laid up on this island having to, kill a bunch of wolves that turn out to be more than wolves. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy working with the artists and of course the writers. Mike Carey, who's a wonderful comic book writer, wrote the script for us. So I will put the print version out later on this year.
It's so nice when you go to Comic-Con or any of these other events like it. You have a lot of the artists or the writers, and there's usually a row of them where you can go talk and get their autographs.
Absolutely, man. Comics mean a lot to a lot of people. It's that blank page where you can put your imagination. And I like everything that's not a superhero comic book. I like the horror stuff, and the science fiction stuff is amazing. And the crime is also really great, and then the underground stuff like Charles Burns and all those wonderful guys. I get a kick out of all of it.
Remember back in the old days when in the comics you could order stuff like sea monkeys or I don't know what.
Yeah. Oh, I ordered sea monkeys. Yeah, and then they show up and they're like these little like, I'm like, what? That's not a monkey.
Yeah.
It's really really depressing. Brilliant advertising though. Sea monkey. That's brilliant.
And all those other little toys and gadgets you could buy in the back of the comic.
X-ray specs.
There you go. Exactly. Well, is there anything else that you're working on that you want people to know about?
That's it. That's it right now. Yeah. I got the Contact in the Desert coming up in May, and getting the book out. And I'm excited about that. I've got also working on a couple of film projects that are UFO related.
Cool.
I have a really good script about the Pascagoula abductions.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's a good story.
Pascagoula, 1973, Calvin Parker, Charles
Hmm.
Hickson. So, these two brothers wrote a fantastic script about that whole event and the fallout of that. And J. Allen Hynek and James Harder got involved investigating the case. It's a great story. And I'm hoping that people are going to start to make more of these type of films, where we'll start to see some dramatizations of some of the classic cases of the past.
Yeah.
I might be a little early, but it's coming one way or another. It's coming.
Yeah. I never thought about that. Like having a movie about the Betty and Barney Hill
Oh, yeah,
story.
they've been trying to do the Betty and Barney Hill thing for years, and for some reason, I'm not sure where they're at with that. But I keep reading here and there that one is, and then there's all kinds of great stories. Dale Spar, the cops in the '60s that chased a UFO through like 3 states
Mhm.
and then had their lives destroyed, because of the publicity that followed. Investigated by Project Blue Book and all those guys. Another great story of just the human impact of dealing with this phenomenon. And I'm hoping that we see more of that, more dramatizations of the classic cases. Lonnie Zamora, that would make a cool film. And there's all kinds of other ones that are fascinating. And so I'm trying to push that forward, make
Uh,
that happen.
Any thoughts on the new Spielberg movie coming out?
Well, I can't wait to see it. We'll
Yeah.
see. My theory was that the little black and white clip of the Roswell crash is real footage cut
Mm.
into the film, and
Wow.
I think that would be an amazing way to kick off disclosure, is by finding out that somehow the Spielberg got access to the actual footage that they took around that crash site and cut it into the movie. Wouldn't that be
That
amazing?
would be incredible.
Yeah. Or maybe they let him watch it, and then of course, he's Spielberg. He's like, I could do that better, and recreated it. But I think it would be cooler to cut in the original footage.
Apparently, Trump's daughter-in-law said something about him having a speech ready about disclosure on a
Yeah.
podcast.
I think every president has a speech because humans don't control disclosure. This is what we have trouble wrapping our minds around. We don't control disclosure. Okay. So say some president, crazy Donald Trump got on the horn and he said, listen, pleased to announce that we're not alone in the universe and we're surrounded by these, visitors and a new dawn is coming. Nobody'd believe that shit. The scientists would go, okay, great, show us. Show us the bodies, show us the technology, and say they do. Say they drag out a UFO and everybody goes down there and looks at it, right? What do they see? They see a metal object that does things that conventional physics doesn't allow. They're going to go, well, how the hell does it do that? And then they're going to say, they're like, well, we've been working on that, and here's how we think it works, which they may not have, by the way. Eric Davis was talking about the fact that there are no physicists in these black programs. He just said that on a Jesse Michaels thing. That is a clue. There's a clue. Not quite sure what it means yet, but it might mean that we aren't interested in the physics. We're only interested in how it works and what it can do. And we would look at that thing. We would test the metal. It would be, say, magnesium, and something else. And we'd be like, okay, great. What's so alien about this thing? It's a piece of metal. Somebody built it. It's there in your warehouse. Show us the aliens. Okay. So then they, go to the cryogenic freezer and they trot out one of these little gray dudes that they've been working on. And the microbiologist cuts out a little piece and puts it under a microscope and does the genetic analysis. And what they find is that it's got human DNA. And they go, okay, what's so alien about this? Where's your alien? I see a metal machine that runs on some physics we haven't figured out, and I see the body that's really weird looking, but has human DNA. So I'm not sure that we have the tools to be able to verify any claims of disclosure. I think that disclosure lies with the aliens themselves. That the only way that we're going to get disclosure is with live alien people revealing themselves in a way that that everyone or most people, a lot of people, what would be the percentage? I don't know. Can verify for themselves. So disclosure lies with the aliens, not with us.
I guess they'll have to land in the middle of a World Cup soccer game or something big.
Yeah, and all the soccer people, it's happened. It's happened in Italy. UFOs are hanging over a soccer game for a long time, seen by thousands and thousands of people. I even think that some of that angel hair floated down during that time. That was, disclosure for the soccer game. It made the news, went all over Italy, made the international news. So yeah, I think our own philosophies, our paradigms, our physicalist, materialist paradigms preclude accepting disclosure. So I think the disclosure that needs to happen might be internal.
Hopefully it'll at least happen in our lifetime.
It's either that or, it's going to be a robot revolution. I don't think there's a third alternative.
Yeah. Well, Thomas, before we wrap it up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
We are in the middle of a Neo-Copernican revolution. There's never been anything like it in the history of human civilization, and we are alive now experiencing this. And the question is, what can we do to move that ball forward in every way possible? How do we raise the frequency and the awareness of our neighbors, our fellows, our families, and our friends to help usher this new evolution of human consciousness into being? And that is the great gift of being alive right now.
Thomas, thank you for your message, and thank you for coming back and being my guest again.
Always a pleasure. I love talking to you, Jeff.
Thank you.
It's always fun.
Thank you. I love hanging out with you. Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.